Well, welcome back. This is segment three of a fascinating discussion that I was able to have with um, Sanjay Srivastava, who is the Chief Digital Officer at Genpact. And Sanjay and I have been talking through some of the great technology advances that we're all starting to experience and the opportunities around AI and big data. But we've also talked in the segment two, we talked about the challenges, many challenges. So, it's certainly something that we've realized, I think, more and more, that we have to create a strategy, a data-driven business strategy and culture. And so we're going to focus on that right now. So the first aspect we want to look at is, how do you choose? How does an organization choose what to work on? It seems like there's just so many different things. So when it comes down to formulating this strategy, how do we choose?
It's a great question, Derek. We see so much in the industry across the corporations we serve. There's innovation rooms, there's centers of expertise, there's different teams that are being spun out, there's innovation labs, and so on and so forth. And I'll tell you, from our learning, from my view, the best way to pick something is to get the business completely engaged and involved. And the reason for that is, I often say this, that is not 100% accurate, but I think gets the point across. I don't think the world really needs another machine learning engineer. It doesn't really need another AI scientist. Not, by the way, we do, right? But bear with me as I make the point. What the world really needs is business people that understand AI. We need that manufacturing shop floor engineer that understands computer vision. We need that financial analyst that is looking at spreadsheets all day that understands pattern recognition and data analytics. We need the customer support person that's on the phone with you to be able to interact with conversational AI and get next best action recommendations, so that when you're about to hang up on the back end of a call, they can say, Derek, wait a minute, most of the people that have asked me the question you just asked me, and thank you for staying with me, I've answered that, will likely come back in 2 weeks and ask me this other question. And in case that happens to be you, here's what it is. And you've just solved something that might happen 2 weeks from now, right? So these are the kinds of opportunities. This is where the value really comes through. And it comes through not because just an AI engineer is able to do something. It comes because there's a convergence of sciences. There's that intersection of business and AI. It's the combination of process nuance and industry knowledge and domain depth, and that intersecting with large language models or generative AI and data and analytics, etc. And so the first thing I tell you is, when you pick projects, right, it cannot be, the data science team or the AI team sort of goes out and says, here'd be something that'd be really interesting. What do you guys think? It has to be, how do you bring the right people together from business, from the industry, from the data science, from the AI teams, and then say, how could we reimagine the value proposition at its core? But we had to do it differently. What would the new process look like, right? I'll give you an example. We were in a scenario with an insurance company, and the topic at hand was, well, here's how we do things. And you can imagine, let's assume I have an auto insurance, and unlucky, but once in a while you end up having an accident, and therefore you have to sort of fill out a set of forms, give some information, etc. And we're sort of looking at all of that stuff and saying, okay, how do we make it better? And we said, actually, you know what, instead of someone sending in something and people sitting and reading all these things and trying to classify it, why don't we just allow a mobile application to take a photograph, to be able to JPEG your driving license, your identity, to be able to automatically connect to your policy, to be able to figure out the size of the damage that's happened by visually inspecting it with the computer vision AI capability, being able to come with an estimate, and within minutes of you actually inputting it, come back and say, Derek, you're pre-authorized to do this, that, and the other. And if you hit this boundary, then come talk to us. And that changes the value. It changes the stickiness of that experience. It's a very different discussion. I'll give you another example. We're talking to someone in the wealth management industry, and they're saying, listen, we have a scenario where, our wealth managers are talking to clients all the time. And, 5 years ago, I would have sent an email to my wealth manager saying, listen, thanks for this meeting on Friday, but it turns out I can't really make it. It's my son's 15th or 5 years ago. So let's just say it's the 13th birthday, and it's an important one. I want to be able to make it. So let's cancel that. Well, you know what? The date of that email, the age of my son, is all sitting somewhere, right? And if we can use all of that and drive this and come back 5 years later, on that day, I get an email basically saying, listen, I know it's your son's birthday. And living based on the demographics and the area you live in, you're most likely going to be buying a car and he's going to be driving. And if so, here are the 3 insurance companies that we work with that we have had really good relationships with. Well, that changes the way I interact, the way they interact with me, right? So these are the kinds of opportunities that are coming through. And they're not coming by people looking at data and interrogating it ad nauseum. They're not coming because they're saying, well, LLMs are there finally, and let's just now go and start applying it. They're coming because someone is trying to intersect the business process. They're thinking about the domain and the industry, and they're reimagining the way they want to deliver value, and they're making those experiences much more sticky. And so that's the first thing I tell you, which is you got to get that right. And the way to pick projects is to get the right people in the room.
Yeah, very important. So I think one of the key things that you spoke about there is really the way that people have done stuff in the past, as opposed to getting them to reimagine how they should do things going forward. And it seems to me that, a lot of businesses have tended to react to things as opposed to being proactive. And perhaps a lot of it has been because they haven't had the information at their fingertips. They haven't known about, certain things that have happened, interactions, etc., that have happened with that customer before, to be able to see patterns, to be able to detect that something's going to happen, and now we can be proactive about it. So, but whenever you start saying, okay, now we're going to change the way we do things around here, that's an interesting step that you're about to take to get from reactive to proactive, to change the culture, etc. How are you seeing, the most successful companies approaching that type of thing?
Derek, it's got to start with you. When I say you, it's the chief technology officer, the chief data officer, the chief digital officer, in some cases, the chief AI officer, or just the CIO, chief information officer. They've got to sort of look internally and look at their organizations. And they have to think about what is the core of their vision, their mission statement. I come across so many scenarios, and we've all been there, where the role and the objective, the mission and the goal for a large data science organization is actually producing reports and insights. And if I produce a report, I gave you that insight, I've done my job for the day. Thank you very much. I feel great about it, right? Pat on the back. And that's good, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's good. But the reality is that doesn't get to business outcomes. And so the first thing you've got to do is, what is my organization really responsible for? Are they responsible for getting the data in order? Are they responsible for getting the right insights out to the people? Are they responsible for producing reports that are accurate, that can be used for decision science? Of course, yes to all of those things, checkbox. But are they responsible for business results? Are they responsible to come back and saying, Derek, thanks for those questions, but here are the 3 questions you didn't even know to ask. And I can give you that because I understand the business and I understand the data and I understand the capabilities of AI. And then how do you actually tear this whole organization away from task to outcome, from data science projects to business results, right? And that's the transition you have to go through. And I think it starts with you. I think it starts with your organization. And I'm speaking to my peers. And I was by the way, this is the role I served at Genpact for the last 10 years. By the way, before that, I was a startup entrepreneur. I don't want you to get the sense that I'm just a big company guy. So I built 4 startup companies, many of them in data and analytics, AI. And so I spend a lot of time with startup CEOs now, helping them sort of solve the obvious problem they have with AI, which is perfect landing, wrong airport, right? And a lot of that is just around, how do you design it right? How do you come up with the right problem set? And how do you have a go-to-market strategy that makes sense in the context of business problems? And so I think that's it. That's the answer. The answer is starts with you. You've got to live it. You've got to breathe it. And you've got to change the role of your organization and the things you're going to hold yourself accountable to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. Sanjay, I think we're kind of drawing to a close here, but before we say goodbye to our audience, I think one thing that would be useful would be to kind of step back from our 3-segment discussion here and think about what would be your major points to advise people to do right now? So they've heard the discussion, that it's resonated with them. What must we do?
I think the thing I would tell you in 2 words is start now.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is it's not perfect. It's not 100% there. But the early movers and the early advantage that'll come to the people that actually do invest in it and do get ahead of it is going to be disproportionately large. And if you're not a forward-thinking, forward-moving corporation, you're likely to get completely left behind. The way to do that, but it's a great statement and it's kind of nice and it's obvious, everyone gets it. But like, how do you translate that kind of into day to day? And I think the way you do that is you really have to own driving change and culture, and you have to bring awareness to the company. We, by the way, on a completely side note, put out a GPT-3 hackathon for 110,000 and 115, something in that range, employees last night. And obviously the whole thing crashed because we were not ready for all the engagement and excitement that has come on the back of that. But these are not computer science people. These are process analysts and business decision makers. And we're engaging them in a manner that is very systematic to get them exposed to the possibilities of AI and technology, to get them to personally experience and feel it and sense it. And then obviously we're putting some guardrails, and we're giving them suggestions, and we're giving them some data to get started with, so you actually work off of the right thing. But that's the kind of thing you need to do, because, and by the way, there are tons of data available. I was speaking with a payer, which is one of the largest healthcare payer systems in the US, and they systematically take a ton of data, obviously anonymized, et cetera, and make it available in a sandbox for people to come in and test new algorithms. And their approach to life is, we're not going to build all the best AI, but you know what? We're going to bring a mechanism in place to get everyone engaged, and the best people with the best algorithms will acquire them, joint venture with them, we'll do something with them, right? But it's that engagement, it's that participation. It's how do you get every one of your employees? How do you get most of your partners? How do you actually possibly even get your customers? And if you're thinking big, you have to be thinking like that. And then you have to get awareness, you have to get training, you have to have the right sandboxes, you have to have these hackathons that I just gave you an example about, which as soon as I get off this call, I'm going to have to go look at what's happening because it's completely sold out. They're the sorts of things to be doing. And I just encourage every one of us, myself included, to sort of keep pushing the boundaries of that, to keep innovating and the frontiers of, where the world's headed, because there's so much more to come and there's so much value we can deliver.
Fantastic. Yeah. Jump right in and, obviously keep all the things in mind that you've highlighted for us in terms of strategy and culture and challenges, etc. And be circumspect about whenever you want to use stuff that's directionally accurate or specifically correct. I think very, very valid points that you've raised for us. Thank you, Sanjay, for joining me and having these discussions. I think our audience is going to really appreciate some of the words of wisdom that you've shared with us.
Derek, you're very kind. Thanks for having me here. I really enjoyed it as well. Look forward to more.
Yeah, excellent. And to the audience, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. But apart from that, go forward and do lots of good old data and AI.